Hello, my name is Kor. You can call me Kor for short if you'd like. I thought I'd make a short YouTube video to test out some things, but first...
Here we have a skunk. Such a big skunk. A cute and hefty black and white creature running amok. You could say they're a bit of a chunky skunky. A chunky skunky. A chunky skunky. I mean, look at this chunk of a skunk. You'll want to hold this non-funky skunk like you're a skunky junkie. But you'll have a hard time, because they're a really, really chunky skunk. And if you give them a donut, they'll be even chunkier, and maybe even skunkier.
That was the video editing portion of the video. I really hope you enjoyed my little chunk of a skunk testing. Now onward to some of your questions from Twitter. Sleepy Doge asks, "Bless me with your pureness, pure daddy." Ooh. Why you guys gotta call me daddy? I don't really understand all that.
My dear floofy and messy son, I bestow upon you the blessing of ultimate purity.
Drav asks, "How do you keep all your drawings so pure?" Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, I go to www.theinternet.com, then I go searching for the purest content. And only the purest content. Usually I'll drink 2 pitchers of purity a day for maximum pureness infusion. Axel Emil asks, "What initially got you into the fandom?" When a 13-year-old and the internet come together, they find many things. But in all seriousness, I had come across a picture online of an anthro creature. Nothing special or pure TM about it, just some person's drawing of their persona. PureKoor thought it was amazing since I had always really liked stuff with anthros in it, but it had never occurred to me that random people could also be interested in that and draw that sort of stuff. I always thought companies were the ones who made that type of stuff. So I basically didn't know how things were truly produced. I understood how they were produced, but it didn't occur to me that people were the ones that made that until that day. Too bad for PureKoor though, because he was starting out on the internet, so he didn't really have a method for searching for any fringe topics. So at that point in my life, I had basically just moved on, not really thinking too far into that. However, 2 weeks later, a friend comes over to my house and he starts using my computer. And after a series of very unfortunate events, he happens to mention the term furry. So later, I've started to explore the interwebs to find these furries. My first stop was Yifstar, which I proceeded to not use. It looked like a viral site. I would never even dare touch that thing. I went there a few times just to look at it, but it was the front page and that was it. Next, I found VCL, which for you youngins was basically a folder online that you search through to find pictures. It was awful to navigate, but I really loved seeing the artwork that people had made, so I endured it. And I kept enduring that for about a yearish until one day I stumbled across FA. Now, this was my first time there. I would normally try to avoid the site because I heard other people say that furries were bad, and I wanted to be perceived as a normal person and a normal kid, so I too thought the furries were bad. But I would still go there sometimes to see some of my favorite artists' works, like Kuma, who I still love today. But this time was a little bit different because I had found a pure TM comic that was rated general, but only part of it was rated general, and then it randomly cut off. Yeah. Now, just a side note, when you create your comic, please rate it the same throughout it. If you have a movie, you do not rate it scene by scene, you rate it as a whole. Please do that. You don't know how much that would actually be helpful. And 1, keeping certain people away from certain content, and 2, just not confusing people on what the rating of the comic is. Anyway, now PureKoor was in a very critical point in his life. Right then, he was basically panel 2 of that Coyote comic, where he wasn't a furry, and he also was 100% straight. But he also really liked anthro creatures, and only really liked men. So, until that day, he was just panel 2. And then he became panel 3, but he was still straight. However, I still couldn't see the rest of the comic when I had made my account. So I found the settings to fix that. And I then figured out FA had a lot of stuff on it. A lot of stuff on it. So, FA had the better navigation. It had a profile. It had all these nice things to it. I basically switched to FA from VCL that day. And then I lurked on FA for years. I actually still lurk with that account, as a random side note. So I could be secretly following any of y'all, and you would never know. One day, though, I was finally at Panel 7. I had seen all the amazing things Furries did. I had seen all the kindness and generosity of the furry fandom. I had seen the curiosity and wonder of all the furries in it, and I just grew up with this stuff and finally accepted that I was probably a furry. Also bisexual, and I wanted to contribute to all of that. So I became Panel 8, and I joined the fandom for reals as a safe for work artist around Christmas time of 2013. And then I credited all my drawings that I made because they were all really, really bad. FJ Ray asked a few questions. How did you get into the furry fandom? I kind of already answered that. How long have you been drawing? The short answer is 2013. The long answer is all my life, but very on and off. I never really took it seriously. I did want to become an artist because my grandma drew really beautiful seashells with me one day after we had gone to the beach, and I really loved that experience. And I don't really like the idea of role models. I think people should follow good behaviors, but I don't really find it useful to follow people as idolized beings. But if I did have a role model, it would basically be my grandma. However, my mom told me that at her fortune teller appointment, the fortune teller said that I would become an artist, bark like a dog, and then soon after, get kidney failure and die. So, as a child, I wasn't really enthusiastic in trying to become an artist. And actually, funny enough, my mom did try to support me becoming an artist, which also means that she supported my death. And that was pointed out too, and she was like, oh yeah, you should still become an artist. It's like, yeah. Why did you pick a tycoon as your persona? Well, I actually wanted to be a bear, a deer, a raccoon, a dragon, or a few other things. And I didn't really know how to draw that stuff when I was first starting out. And I was really bothered that I couldn't draw all those animals. They looked really bad. But there were tutorials of how to draw dogs. There were a lot of references of dogs. I had been close to dogs before. I would pet them all the time and stuff like that. So I eventually chose to become a wolf because I just knew more about canines. And funny enough, my fur pattern for my wolfsona actually partially came from me not knowing how to shade. Great design. So I eventually grew attached to my wolf, but I didn't really want to be a wolf. And I eventually kept trying to change my persona throughout the time that I had my wolfsona, but I eventually stopped because I was just I don't know what I want to be. And then after a while, I eventually did know what I wanted to be. I wanted to be everything, but I couldn't be everything. So I eventually sat down and just started to design a bunch of different things, and I came across one of the idea of being a tiger and a raccoon, because tigers are big and cool and strong, and raccoons are these big fluffy balls of cuteness that also just wreck everything, and they're just adorable. And when I was thinking of species names for combinations and stuff, I came across the idea of a tycoon, which a tycoon is a person with a lot of money and stuff, and I love to be I would love to be a capitalist that has all of the money so I can do a lot more things. So tycoon is kind of cool. And then I thought of it having horns, which horns are cool. So that would be cool to have. And then I thought of a horny tycoon. I was instantly sold. Yes, for any of you viewers wondering, I am an adult. Thank you very much. Yoshi asks, do you have a good day? Yes. That's a serious question. Yeah, I would say I'm having a pretty good day so far. Glad you asked. And that was all the questions. thanks for watching my test video. Hope it wasn't too mediocre. And I'll see you guys some other time. Yay.